Sure.
We
We
are
get
now
started.
recording. Yep, we're recording.
Excellent. Patty.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. I am Patty Del Greco, and I'm the instructional designer with Antioch University. I also have Bonnie Powers here, and Katie Golas, and Jenny Featherston, who also work with me in the academic technology department. For the most part, you may or may not know me. I generally work with AU online. I help instructors develop course work that is going to be in the online environment. So today we're going to focus on, let's see, did that work? Today we're going to focus on remote learning for fall 2020, now that we know that this is going to happen. And you've expressed interest, at least on the survey, that you would like to spend less time on Zoom and maybe more time with creating more engaging instruction. So we're going to take a look at some ideas and resources. I'm going to review some basic instructional design principles. And then lastly, I'm going to share a course inventory and update document for you to maybe use when you reflect on the course that you taught in the spring, or maybe the course you're teaching now. I want to stress that this workshop is more about reflecting and planning versus implementing. This is more non-technical. The technical aspects of what you might want to do in your Sakai course will come later. So I'm just going to start at the beginning, because this is basically what I do for my instructors in the online environment. I want to stress that I understand that you all have courses already, so you're not going to necessarily start at the beginning. And I also want to stress that we're not asking you to do an overhaul of your course, not at all. But I thought it was worthwhile to talk to you a little bit about backwards design, which is a model for developing online learning. And in this particular model, we begin with the course outcomes. And we basically design the course so that everything the student is engaged in or does in the course will align with those course outcomes. So while this isn't a linear process exactly, what we do is we go back and forth a little bit. We kind of think about what will the students need to do or read or consider to meet the course outcomes. We may create learning activities first. We may go into looking for resources first. Sometimes it goes back and forth. You know, this process takes a while. I want you to know that it isn't instantaneous. It takes quite a bit of planning, sometimes 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how much time. Sometimes quicker if we end up having to do a course pretty quickly. So again, I wanted to stress, maybe for you today, all you would want to do is think about maybe one thing that you'd like to focus on for your remote course for the fall. And I did put a link in here to Understanding by Design, which is some more information about backwards design if you're interested. So the first part of this is kind of a reflection part, and it's about thinking back on what worked and maybe what didn't work. And so I guess I thought I would open it up at this particular time and let anyone share joys and concerns about what happened or what is happening in your course currently or in the spring. Do we have any questions or thoughts? Bonnie, I'm not seeing any, so.
There aren't any quite yet. I'm just going to let people give them a second to chime in.
Sure. Thank you.
I don't have anything in the chat
Okay.
at this moment.
So, so again, it would be more about what kinds of things would you maybe like to change or update for your remote course this fall? So one of the things that we wanted you to understand is that direct instruction in an online environment looks a little bit different than what you were doing in the face-to-face classroom. So these activities can satisfy the credit hour requirements, therefore reducing the time that you have to spend in Zoom. So direct instruction for an online environment looks like posting announcements for students in the Sakai course, creating those weekly or module introductions in Sakai, preparing written or video lectures, again, in Sakai, not necessarily doing it in the Zoom meetings. Preparing any demonstration or presentation videos, and preparing any assignments and activities. Those are things that might reduce your time in the Zoom session if you did them, if you planned for them in Sakai before the Zoom session.
And specifically what you're saying is that those count as contact hours for the student.
Yes.
If they are
Yes.
reading those videos, watching the videos, reading your written weekly instruction.
Right. I guess
and
the
those sorts of
idea, Bonnie,
things.
behind it is because maybe if instructors were thinking, well, the only, I have to do this in the Zoom session. The reality is actually that's, you don't. I mean, you don't have to do your weekly introductions in the Zoom session. You could create a text-based introduction and put it in your site, or you could create a video-based introduction and have students watch it before they got to the Zoom meeting. Any thoughts, or has anyone practiced this at all? Okay, I'm going to move on. In terms of indirect instruction and ideas that could be incorporated into these Zoom sessions, an indirect instruction is where the students are preparing these things on their own, but they could be linked or shared in the Zoom session. So anything that like if you have the students create a presentation, they could bring their presentation and share it in the Zoom session. Debates or any role playing, that kind of lesson, again, in Sakai, you would go ahead and assign those roles and assign the questions or what they were going to talk about, and then they could be prepared to engage in that in the Zoom session. Case studies, that would be posting the study and the questions prior to the Zoom session. Problem solving, again, if you have, you could post any exercises or problems for the students and have the students share their solutions in the Zoom session. Concept maps, infographics, charts, and graphs. You could post examples. Students could engage in this creating it in Sakai, and yet posting it or having it to share in Zoom. Things like interviews. I've been working on a couple courses recently where students are being asked to interview. And of course, because of COVID, they aren't actually going out and interviewing people. So they're often recording their interviews. So that would be something else that a student could share in a Zoom session with other students. Peer reviews, they could be reviewing each other's work, outside of the Zoom session, and then coming to Zoom and sharing their thoughts. Reflection, self-assessment, and portfolios or other things students could be preparing and then again sharing. This essentially would take a lot of the burden off of you to be doing all the work in the Zoom session and reduce your amount of fatigue, and yet at the same time be there to facilitate the students. Is there anything that maybe you're trying right now or experimented with that I haven't mentioned here?
Very quiet
Any
group.
successes, huh? Well, the other thing I thought of, and I don't know, like one of my roles is kind of to just think about things and then maybe talk to an instructor and see if they're willing to try it. Another idea would be to have the students run the Zoom session. And I don't know if that's going to take a little bit of planning, but you would say, okay, this week, 2 or 3 or 4 students are going to run the Zoom session. And then you would give them an assignment. Maybe the assignment would be, a discussion, or maybe they've watched something and you want them to lead a group discussion. That might be something for them to do, to be in those breakout rooms or whatever you set up. So again, it takes less pressure off of you. The other thing about thinking about your courses for the fall is using that variety of different resources. I mean, one thing that's great about Sakai, and maybe you weren't utilizing as much in a face-to-face instruction, is your ability to kind of have students listen to and look at and watch all sorts of different types of digital resources. So, that might be one of your focuses for fall 2020 is like, wow, maybe I could take a look at things that I used to pass out or give or assign or whatever and put them in the Sakai course so that students are doing most of this reading, watching, listening, and I'm trying to think, listening, reading, writing, and watching prior to coming to the Zoom session. The other thing that I wanted to emphasize is if you need any help with this, and I actually saw a email this morning from the library that says, hey, we're still here. Please, they are a wonderful resource. Reach out to them about free digital resources that you can use for your remote course. Okay, I created a very simple document that I called the Course Inventory and Update document, and I will make it available for you. But essentially, it looks like this. And can everyone see it? Because I know sometimes if it gets a little small, I'll open it as a Google Doc. This is, again, very simple, and you can use all of it or none of it. It basically, course number, your title, maybe your description, your course outcomes. And then what I have is sort of an inventory, like you would do, look at your week 1 and what you currently have in it, and then list some of the things, add some notes, and then the week 1, below it is a week 1 update, which you could say, okay, well, one of the things I'd like to update is my resources. So you would put that in here. That would be really helpful in the planning stage before, you decide to make any changes to your course. This document, as I said, I think put in something like 15 weeks, but obviously you don't have to use it all 15 weeks. If you only need to maybe work in week 4, I mean, delete the rest. I mean, it's certainly up to you. It's all editable and you can download it for your use.
Patty, if anybody needs to see these, the fonts and things a little bit bigger, you can go to your view options menu at the top and you can use your zoom ratio to zoom in a little further if you need them. And that's actually a lot better for me.
Yeah,
I just have a small laptop screen, so.
I have a huge screen, so I forgot that. It looks pretty tiny. First, when I blow it up, then you can't see as much. But just, week 3, readings and resources, live interactions, activities, and assessment. Again, it's an inventory kind of you know, whatever you would like to put in it is up to you. Any questions or thoughts?
Mary Lou had a question, which
Sure.
was, what suggestions do you have for a class that is basically a seminar? And I am just trying, I've asked her to clarify, what does she mean by seminar? Does,
Yeah.
where it's a small group that's talking about in group discussion versus a lecture class. So Mary Lou, if you want to unmute yourself, you're welcome to clarify that.
Let me find myself here.
You're all set. I've got you unmuted.
Oh, great. Okay. Yes, yes, it's a sort of primarily a group discussion with, at least that's a big part of it.
And how many students do you usually have?
Small. I mean, 10, maybe between 10 and 15.
Okay.
Well, Mary Lou, can I ask you, first of all, do the students know, I mean, are they reading something in advance, or do they know the questions, what they're supposed to be discussing?
They're definitely reading things. Yes, I think sometimes there are questions but it's the back and forth that creates the energy of the class, and it's not like individual people sharing one thing after another. It's like not like a group of students giving reports, but it's the dialogue, and so that's important.
So you're looking to try to make it feel more classroom-like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Is it possible to have, I mean, I understand if you're giving a lecture, you can do that easily, but, you know, and certainly I mean, that's always a part of what happens, but.
Have you taught in Zoom the last few sessions and you found that it was stilted, or have you not tried this yet and so you're just not sure how it will go?
I haven't taught in Zoom I didn't teach spring quarter, and
Okay.
there was like one class winter quarter, so.
Okay. So I think if you haven't done this already, you probably will want to like do a practice in Zoom first. And Bonnie has all sorts of she has how many levels of Zoom do you have, Bonnie?
We have several different sessions. I think
Right.
primarily what we can talk about, Mary Lou, is how you establish norms in your class. If you have a small class where discussion is important, you might not ask people to mute their microphones all the time so that you don't have that wait time between commenting. But you might also instruct people to just give a little raise of their hand in the video to let people know that they have something to say, so that they can leave a break in the conversation. And I think it takes a little bit of practice. And in a big session like this, where everybody's muted, we're not modeling that seminar feel. But if you come to some of our other intro sessions, we model a more seminar feel where there's only somewhere between 3 and 10 people in the session. We leave our mics unmuted. You ask questions at any time. And we talk about the different ways that you can just indicate you have something to say, and how you're going to manage that discussion. So we can definitely talk more about that.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Martel had a question. He would like a link to the document. And I put in the chat that we'll be linking to the video, the slide deck, and the course inventory and update document so that you all can see it right after this session. Or even at the end of the session, I can put it in the chat so you guys have the link before you leave.
I see a hand raised.
That's Mihi.
Oh, so just a little bit in response to Mary Lou, and I've only done a couple short workshops. I haven't done a full quarter class, so I'm in the same boat as you are, but I've been playing around a lot with breakout groups. I think that's one of the things our students, when we've surveyed our LA students, has worked really well to kind of enhance the discussion format, that even if you give them a little prompt and you go away and then you can go back and forth between the breakout groups to kind of enhance the conversation. And the other thing specific around the Zoom fatigue that we've been playing around with has been having them work on shared documents, like a Google Doc or something like that, but not requiring them to be on video, so that they could be on the phone or even just in the Google Doc, because some of the fatigue is about looking at each other the whole time, but they want to be in discussion in ways that don't require them to shush their kids and, all these other things. But that way they can do dialogue without always, especially if they're in multiple classes, this sort of video overload. So those are a few things I'm experimenting with related to your question.
Right. Essentially, if you have an idea, we can help you implement it. That's what this particular workshop is about, is you coming up with your ideas and then coming to us and saying, hey, I've got this, right? Or I'm interested in learning how to do that. And that way we can lead you or help you and support you so that you can figure out or how to do exactly what it is you want to do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So what are your next steps? Well, your next step is really to just kind of reflect and review your course. You can use the course update and inventory document to decide on what it is you might want to change. And as I said, this isn't about overhauling your class. You've been teaching it for years. There's probably lots of great material on. You might just want to focus on a couple things, and that would be great. And then you want to implement your changes, and that's going to take probably place maybe in Sakai. And then you'll want to use us, your AT department, Bonnie, the resources that we have for you. And you'll just reach out to us and let us know if you have any issues or problems, and we'll help make that happen for you. If you can dream it, we'll help you build it. That's for sure. At this time, if there are any other questions, I know that this was pretty simple and there's probably a lot of questions you might have on implementation. I didn't want to get into that, but Bonnie's here so she could possibly redirect you or talk to you about what might be next for you.
Karen posted a question in the chat. She finds two challenges working in a Zoom discussion. Zoom can't pick up people overlapping speech. That's the first one. And the second one is there's not a good way I found to avoid the way comments made just seem to go out into the ether versus in face-to-face where I can be looking at an individual or just a part of the room. Students too always have to talk to me versus a couple of people. Have there been ways around these challenges?
Well, Bonnie, does this happen in breakout rooms also?
Yeah, Zoom is the in and out speaker. It's not like a telephone where you can hear on one line and speak on another line because you have everybody coming in. If you try to talk while I'm talking, Zoom will decide whether my words come through or whether your words come through. We can't overlap each other as easily. And that has been an issue for people who want to sing together as a group in singing classes or things like that. So that's not something you can change. But I think it's more of a behavior change of learning how long to wait before someone stops talking to jump in, or having a way of managing the discussion by using your physical raised hand, or in the participants menu, you can click the raise hand blue button like Mihi did a minute ago. Those all queue up in the participants menu by who raised their hand first. So an instructor knows that they can just go down the list and ask everyone to take the turn. So there isn't a fix for that in Zoom. And I don't know if you've heard that she has heard that Google Classroom can pick up overlapping speech. But that's not, it's not a tool we in AT have a lot of experience with. But it is free and available if you wanted to try it. It's not what we recommend, and that's because students often have more than one course at a time. And if some faculty are using Google Classroom and some faculty are using Sakai, a student has to learn a lot more and struggle a lot more than using the same platform for all of their courses while they're here, where they can learn to use a single platform better versus being a beginning user in separate platforms.
I think also that's a reference to Google Meet rather than Classroom. Classroom is an LMS essentially structure that stores the information. So it'd be where you'd be posting materials and the conversation. But unless they've changed it very recently, Meet is the name of the video conferencing.
I think you might be right, Katie. And I experienced no video, no audio overlapping in Google Meet when we met in it recently. It was just like Zoom, and that only one person could talk at a time.
So thank you so much. This is really helpful to know. I'm wondering if there's a setting where raising hands can be seen by everyone versus just the host, because I've stopped using the raising hand because I'm the only one who can see it in my current settings, and I want the whole class to be able to kind of run itself in terms of a discussion versus me having to call on people. Just curious.
The reactions, are you familiar with the reactions button? The reactions allows you to give a thumbs up or a hands clapping, but it only stays on your video for 5 seconds. And I believe everyone can see it, right? Can you all see the clapping hands on my video?
Yeah.
So that might be one way for people to indicate, but they'd have to re-raise it every few seconds if they're ready for but at least it would indicate to everybody in the classroom, oh, there are 3 people who had questions. Let's wait for them to do that. And then if one starts to talk, you can put your hand back up when they're about done to say, I'd like to be next, or something like that. It's not perfect, but I also want to offer that in the settings in Zoom, there is a feedback tab. And if you sent feedback to Zoom saying you would like a different way, you would like to be able to allow each other to see the raised hands in the blue, they might add that to a future thing, a future version. So, and talk to me about it and I'll show you where the feedback is and we can do that.
So I've found that using in groups, less than a dozen or so, just physically raising your hand in the gallery view is fine. And it's much easier for the facilitator, whether it's a student or faculty, just to kind of keep track, because it's a kind of a diversion for me to go off into participants and keep track of whose blue hand is up and keep track of what's in the chat. So for small groups, hands up on video seems to work well. I was in a Google Meets meeting this morning. I think it's the first one I've participated in, and it was small. It was 7 people, and an occasion there was some talking over one another that occurred, and it was a bit muddled. So we all kind of had to laugh and back up a little bit, and then move forward again. And in Zoom, I have found that you set the norms for how you want to use Zoom, and I think people generally are pretty cognizant and respective of who's speaking when. I have not tried to, facilitate, just go for an open conversation. I think that's what breakout rooms are for, really, with 3 people or whatever. So that's just some feedback from my perspective.
I was
Thanks,
also going
Jim.
to also comment to make sure to tell everybody to put their view into gallery view rather than speaker view. Definitely for classes, unless you are doing a presentation where you want everybody focused on somebody, the gallery view is definitely the way to go, just because then you see everybody and people can talk to each other. And every individual needs to make that change. You change your own view, but they control their view. So you do need to mention everybody to double check that they're in gallery view. Like right now, if you're only seeing me, you're not in gallery view. And in the upper right, if you're on a computer, then you have an option for gallery view. It's a little bit different in the mobile devices, but
Yeah, mobile device, you swipe left or swipe right to get from the speaker view to the gallery view. And yes, and with what Jim was saying, everybody's video sort of has to be on, or it helps for videos to be on in a small conversation like that, so that you can see what people's body language is, or if they raise their hand like they want to say something, or if they're looking somewhere else, that something else might be going on with them. So setting up those classroom norms for how you want people to participate in certain ways, that instruction is an important part.
Okay, I had another couple of questions, or a comment and a question. So at our faculty meeting this morning in environmental studies, we discussed some Zoom norms, and some faculty require that all students' videos are on all the time. and some faculty are a little bit more flexible or ambivalent about that, depending on, again, you know, if there's kids around or whatever, can be distracting. So I don't think we need to try to establish a one size fits all for that protocol. But my question is to Patty, and I'd like to hear a little bit about what some of the major challenges that AUO has faced in its development, and what some of what you see your successes are with, you know, this kind of interaction and class size, everything like that. I'm just not really familiar with AUO.
I'll speak to that. I mean, unless you have something you want to
Oh,
say
I do
about it.
want to try. I've only been with the Antioch 6 months, so before I was with a couple other universities. So Katie is probably the best one to address it. She knows
Okay,
the
great.
history.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Well, so AUO classes for the undergraduate program specifically, which is the longest running one. They're 6 years roughly at this point. They are fully online, asynchronous. They have no live meetings. So they are a very different structure than what you all are dealing with in terms of trying to figure out how to rapidly adapt to what's going on right now and not being able to meet in the classroom. The solutions for a fully online asynchronous class are not the same as for ones where you're meeting with your students and talking to them live. It's a very different design for those and considerations. But in general, I would say for online courses, they have them capped. I think 20 students is almost always the maximum for them. They try to keep them closer to 15. Sometimes they get up to 25. I've never seen more than 25. That's like really, really the limit for the number of students they'll let into any individual class. Faculty presence. So all the courses are designed ahead of time too. So as Patty was talking about with the full design process, they usually design them over a 3-month period with particular faculty, and they have all the content ready. And then the individual teaching faculty, when they're about to start a term, go through all the content that they've been given, all the setup of everything set up. They just get a class, and then they make adjustments to it based on their own teaching methodology or, new things that have come along. And so it's a very, very different process that they're doing. So again, I don't know, it's not really directly comparable.
Oh, that helps a lot. I didn't realize that. So AUO is everything is on the Sakai platform, right?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't. It started out in a different system. When it was begun, there was another company that they were working with to get it started with for reasons that are beyond me, but that's how it happened. And then it's moved into, they moved it into Sakai about 2 years ago now. So everything is being taught in Sakai.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah,
But,
and there aren't synchronous course meetings, but some faculty do have a one-on-one Zoom with their students to have some synchronicity with them.
Yeah, some of our programs want like some optional Zoom meetings, to clarify maybe points or discussions or projects or whatever. I mean, it's a nice element, but we can't, because of people's work and families and whatever, we can't necessarily, demand that they have to be there at that time.
I would say too that one of the things that is really important for the teaching of those courses though is making sure that there's faculty presence. An online course is not a course where you just give the students stuff to do and then aren't there. Your role as a moderator, your role as somebody who's guiding the conversation and making the connections and helping students to, grapple with the materials and get to the point where you want them to be, it has to happen all along. Otherwise, you should just tell them which textbook to read and back away. So, you know, being a teacher in the remote environment and doing that, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, and making sure that you are guiding and your personality is part of it is really, really important. And that is where in AUO, the faculty spend most of their time in terms of faculty development, is how to keep themselves present in the materials and for their students.
See, Audrey has her hand up.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm curious about AUO2 and you know, part of the discussion here is, you know, if your students or you are experience Zoom fatigue, you know, how to bolster your Sakai class, you know, because we've spent a lot of time just getting faculty up to speed on Zoom, and you know, that's the closest parallel to the in-person classroom. So I'm curious, just you know, what are the, you know, what have been the highlights of the Sakai classes in either AUO or others? What do you know about what the students have responded to most? I know that's not going to be the same with every student, but I figure with AUO, there's, you know, years of experience designing these classes, and I'm just curious what have been the tools that have students and faculty have resonated with the most, you know, so that we can pass that on to our faculty as they're maybe wanting more Sakai options to relieve that Zoom fatigue.
Right. I think the main challenge is that creating remote asynchronous and remote instruction, or just designing courses in general, is incredibly individual to the course and the instructor. There isn't a one, so you can't say put in some discussion forums and it's going to go well. You know, so I mean, part of this presentation and the information from Patty is that if you don't have an idea and an intention about what you want the students to come away with, the kind of experience you want them to have, if them sharing their own personal experiences is a critical part of it, if them finding somebody in their community and sharing that person's experience, you know, there's all kinds of you, the individual instructor, and very explicitly what is supposed to be achieved in that class and the kind of environment you want. You need that information in order to figure out what tools will get you there. So picking the tool and then finding a way to use it in your class, the wrong way to go. You need to think about what you want, and you need to think about what you think isn't going to work with just Zoom, or what's not quite working if you've already tried it, and then focus your attention there to find a different experience that's going to work better. Because we've got tools. We have oodles of tools and oodles of ways we can manipulate them to do pretty much anything you can dream up. But if you don't have the dream of what you want the experience for the students to be like, then it's probably going to feel pretty stilted and forced and not that much fun. So unfortunately, the reflection on your own desires for the class is a critical first step before you can apply the tools in a way that the students are going to respond to. And so in our team, we do it on an individual class basis. And our challenge right now is trying to give you guys enough tools to be able to do some of those pieces on your own, because we simply don't have the scale in our team to be doing it individually like we should be if, you know, we were really doing it right. So.
I'll say
it's not a satisfying answer, but
No, I think it's a wise answer. I'm just trying to think about, I think some of the questions that arise with us are similar to, you know, others. You know, how would you, I didn't teach last term, but I know, you know, I used forums for my last class, and I thought that because you know, the students, sometimes they like the reading material, sometimes they don't. But in this particular case, they were engaged with, you know, a couple of the readings and the questions. The more engaged they were, the more, you know, kind of engaged the postings felt. But I found myself, you know, wanting, a little bit more, a tool with a more spontaneous feel, like a seminar. And someone else brought that up. So, you know, what's the best, you know, tool for a seminar, and also what would be the best tool for, you know, the equivalent of a breakout room in Sakai, if you wanted to, you know, take a week off from Sakai and just say, you know, have a student run a forum or a commons, or I know there are other tools in Sakai that I personally have not used. You know, what do you think would be the best tool to kind of, you know, recreate the feeling of a small group seminar in Sakai if you wanted a break from the Zoom?
I would suggest playing with Commons and using Commons. You can also add a comment to a comment area into a lessons page, which will just have everybody's comments. You know, both Commons and the comments tool it's more like a Facebook wall than the forums tool. So you'd be missing out on a lot of that text and the picture of the person and all that stuff, but it consolidates what people are saying so that it's easier to scan and quickly read. It's a much less formal feel to it. So trying some of those would be good. I also wanted to say, Audrey, your description of specifically what didn't go well is exactly what I'm talking about, in terms of, like, you know, have an idea of what's not working or what you want instead, and then finding a tool is much easier. And you can just shoot us an email with sort of, here's the thing that I'm thinking of. How would I do this? And then that's much easier for us to react to. So things like that. But yeah, Commons or comments as part of a lessons page. If you want to write out sort of what your ideas that you want students to do, and then just put a comment area at the bottom, and then students can have their discussion right there on the page. That's a really nice way to have the framing. If there's a video you want them to watch, that can be all on that same lessons page too. So all of that can be contained in one place, rather than having them go to different places too. Having things disjointed in Sakai is hard. The lessons tool can help you pull the things together for students to have a little bit more context around the activities as well, which we can also help with.
Yeah, there are a lot of tools for collaborative learning. You could use a shared Google Doc where people could build a topic together or a worksheet together or whatever they're doing in a shared Google Doc, or a shared Google Sheet, or a Google Slides. There's a Trello board, which is sort of like a guided discussion. They have little topics across the top, and then you can comment on any one of those topics down there, and it's saved. And of course, if you use something like that, you would want to link to it from Sakai, so that Sakai is the place, and you're like, oh yeah, if you wanted to try the Trello board, or if you wanted to build a collection of links to resources in different topics, you can use something like Symbaloo, which is a visual link organizer, so that your multiple people could contribute to a Symbaloo thing. And these are just small activities, but I think they all come down to this. Students want to be seen and heard in a short amount of time. You know, Allison Henry did some work with her Waldorf students and reflected that when people submitted their journal before the end of one day, one class, and then the next class, when she read off parts and addressed questions that she read in their response, even though she wasn't using their names, they visually and physically responded to her reading their writings and mentioning what she talked about, because they felt that their work had been seen and heard, and therefore it was of value that they spent their time doing that. So I think this engagement can be done in many different ways and many different tools, but I think that's what really makes things feel more successful and more like it used to be before we had to go to online remote learning. So if you have a particular activity, we can figure out whether Trello is a good tool, or whether just using a forum in a different way is better, or adding commons or comments. And that's something you are welcome to email us in AT about. Can we meet and talk about these learning objectives I want to do in today's course or next week's course? Let's say give us a month out, next semester's course, so that we can help show you a couple of things. Mentimeter does some good polling where students can contribute to word clouds that are developed together or answer questions, either text or multiple choice, and see the results of what the whole class is seeing in the moment. So those are some other options that are out there.
I've been interested as well into what are some of like assignments that either can be useful. I know I'm teaching a master's course on current trends in neuroscience, and I'm trying to think of like, all right, well, what's better than just a paper and another couple of papers? Because I could imagine the constant reading, the constant reflections that they're going to have to do. Has there been any like other type of assignments that folks have utilized?
Yeah, Patty, you want to take that one?
Well, would you explain to me well, we have a lot of different types of assignments besides papers. In fact, I would suggest, what is an authentic assignment for someone who is going into this career? I couldn't hear what you were saying in terms of what course you were teaching.
So it's in the master's education, leadership, and change.
Okay.
And usually, like, they'd have a paper and then the presentation. I think the presentation was the big piece that got everyone to really engage, because it'd be really interactive. And now that we're losing this type of interactive piece within person, I feel like that has impacted the way that I can see that assignment. And I know virtually, like, they can do the presentation as well there too, but I mean, the students were really creative, where it was like, here's an activity, run around the room. Like, it was really thought-provoking and engaging. And I really feel like I would want to capture something of that. So I was really hoping to hear what are some.
Well, certainly your students could be, creating video if that would work for you. And every student at Antioch has a pro Zoom account. So they could be presenting on Zoom, recording it, and then loading it to the Sakai course or sharing the link in the Zoom meeting, or you could be, or showing it to you in the Zoom meeting. That would be another way you could do this to make it more engaging. I think, one of the things that I think is to help with the fatigue and the technical aspects, I think sometimes it's better to prepare in advance. Like, I wouldn't have just come on today and gone, da 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 da, like, I prepared this for you. And that's part of the deal. I prepared it and made sure so that when I was ready, it was ready for you. So that's why Sakai would be helpful, is that you can post some of these things like, I want to see your videos, your presentations, whatever, and you would have the links already. Maybe you've even viewed them, so that when they're sharing, you've already looked at them. You might have some comments that you want to make. That would make it, and people can interact in the chat also. You could mute them because what someone said earlier about us all talking at once might be annoying. So that would be something that you could do. So that's one of the things that I'm thinking could be highly interactive or unusual or engaging for the students instead of writing a paper. So, I mean, hey, you know what, Martel, we can carry on this conversation. Just write me and I will give you some ideas. Tell me what it is you want to do, and I'll be more than happy to throw around some ideas with you, and we can come up with something really cool and really fun.
One of the things, I was at a presentation recently where people were talking about alternative ways of showing knowledge too. And the question they asked was, if somebody came to me with a picture, could I imagine that, some diagram that they made or a visual image could prove to me that they know this information? And if the answer is you could imagine that that could be possible, you should give that to your students as an option for them to submit that to you. Unless explicitly writing a formal paper is something that will be asked of them when they are applying this knowledge later on, it makes sense to let your students, if you want to know that they know it and how well they know it, thinking about some unusual ways, at least in terms of, traditional education, that they might be able to show that. Doing a video presentation instead of a paper for anything, a recording of them describing their depth of knowledge, if that's something that they prefer, if they're more verbal people, those kinds of things. If what you need to know is that they know it, then there's almost always a better way or an alternative way that people could be doing it on a regular basis, and that every student could have a choice to be choosing, for every individual assignment, which one it may be. There are a few careers where being able to write an APA style paper is actually something that will be needed of them later on. For most, it's not. So that's just another thing to consider for your own courses in general, I would say. Allowing students flexibility of presenting their knowledge is something to think about.
So a couple of people have mentioned a couple of things in the chat that I just want to reiterate. So the words Katie was using earlier about the wall, meaning just a threaded post and reply on a page. There are two versions. One is called the Commons tool. It's its own tool and can be put in the sidebar of Zoom. And one is called the Comments tool, COMMENTS, and that can be put on a lessons page. So you could have one wall on each of your lessons pages about this week's topic or next week's topic, versus the Commons being a tool in the sidebar that you would use ongoing over the course of the term. We'll be sending out links. I'm going to put a link. Mihi very generously tested the link for me to make sure it worked before I sent it out, to Patty's course inventory and update document. When you go there, it's going to ask you to make a copy. So it's going to put a copy of that document in your own drive versus you editing Patty's version. So then you could have one that you can actually fill out. And I'll put that in the chat now.
You can also download it too, though, Bonnie.
Yes.
And save it to their local drive. Or
Bonnie?
local
Yes.
computer, I should say.
I had a question how you did that. That part of like to do a thing to make a copy of a document.
Okay.
That-
I hacked the link. If you want to stay on at the end, I'll be happy to show you what I did.
All right. I have a 12 o'clock, but maybe I'll buzz you about it later. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. I just, in case anybody else has any other questions for Patty and Katie while we have them.
Well, it was really nice to meet all of you. Please, if you have some questions, feel free to write me. I'll do whatever I can to help you out. Like I said, if you can dream it, we can help you build it, and we will help you build it. I mean, I think about a couple weeks ago, I was in a virtual conference, and I experienced a lot of Zoom fatigue. So I certainly, know what you're talking about, and feel like anything that we can do to help alleviate some of that would be, we would be more than happy to help you with.
Okay.
So if there's nothing else, you're going to close the meeting then, Bonnie?
Yep, I will stop the recording now. If you have any questions, you can email us at at@antioch.edu, or Patty at pdelgreco@antioch.edu, or me, or Katie. We all get to see the AT email, so if you want us all to see it, that's an easy way. You don't have to put in 3 email addresses.